Now, I think you have to accept the recording.
I don't see that coming through. Oh, meeting's being recorded. Gotcha.
So we're here, we started. I'm terrified.
This is going to be fun.
So, James, before you start, you asked me, you said you wanted me to maybe one of my little quotes that I've been putting on Facebook or whatever. Or
Yes, yes.
shall I
Anyone.
start with that?
Yes.
So I haven't got one, but what I was thinking, what came to mind was, well, the first thing that came to mind, I'll try and keep this very brief. The first thing that came to mind was that verse, which I've thought about often with you, which in 2003, I did this little lesson on love when I was leaving the ICOC or about to leave. I realized, oh, it's all about love. And one of the verses, I put together this little lesson on love. And one of the verses was about Paul and the Ephesian elders. And I just read it again today. He can't go to Ephesus. He's in a hurry. So he asked for the elders to come to Miletus, wherever he was. And he tells me he's never going to see them again. They're never going to see his face again. And they weep. They weep together on the beach. And the thing that they weep about, the elders, that they're never going to see him again. And I think at the time in 2003, it was like, that should be what we feel like when we don't see each other. That should be the love that we have for each other. And to be honest, I didn't really feel it with a lot of people in the ICOC. I mean, I had a lot of friends, and obviously, I'll come to that. But I feel that with you, and you're like 12 years older than me, so I kind of think of you as an elder, as my elder, and I feel that love for you, and I think I would. I think if you said, "Oh, I'm going off to be killed in Jerusalem," I think I would weep at the idea of not seeing you again. You know, and the other thing I wanted to say, because we're going to talk a lot about the ICOC, and I'm probably going to be quite critical of a lot of things, but I wanted to thank you and Doug Arthur, who started the London ICOC, and your wives and the other people who came, because even though I've got a lot of issues with what happened and what went on, and a lot of good, I experienced a lot of good things, not least meeting my wife, making some incredible friends, learning a lot of lessons. A lot of skills, a lot of life skills uh, that I wouldn't necessarily have got in other places, or I don't know. So I just want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for you guys coming, and even though I've got issues with it, a lot of good came out of it for me. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're the man of love. And by the way, for anyone that's curious, I put down a list of all the people I would want to do these lessons with. And Matthew was at the top of the list. And I'm going to share why later. But I'm going to start out by saying the greatest of these is love. And I think that's Matthew's message. And that's been challenging and encouraging and enlightening for me for the years, for the hours and hours that we've spent together. Which, by the way, this is interesting. I trust you so much that I'm doing these recordings only with you. I'm not recording this, you're recording it, meaning you could send this off anytime. And that's the love and respect I have for you. You know, when I think about the church that we did, I don't mean just in London. When it says faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love, I think we did better with faith and hope. I kind of view our church as the faith part, and hope was our charity. Love has to eclipse them all. And I look back on that church we did, and I felt like when people came to visit us, I think we did love them. I feel good about that. I don't think we never did a lesson on love bombing. Act this way if someone comes to church. We genuinely loved people when they came to visit. And then when they got baptized, it was genuine love. It was genuine love. It's so great to have you here with us. When people left our church, that's when we turned off the love, just turned off the love and said, no, let them suffer out there. Let them be out there without all the friends. Let them see what it's like not to have us around. And I think of all the things, and we'll talk about this in detail later, but this is how all men will know you're disciples. And so it was very important to me to realize anytime someone left, and we're talking about 900,000 people even, it was obvious that the love was jerked right out. almost as a punishment. But that's something that we will get into. I will say this, the youth of our church caught on better than we ever did. When they started, I know that I've listened to a lot of the younger speakers, but when they had people leave, like they would have a teen leave because they're gay and they didn't want to do all the things and go through all the hoops. And the teen people, these kingdom kids, these young people would say, hey, you're telling us you're leaving us? We still love you. We still love you. And you're still going to be invited to every one of our get-togethers that our group's going to have. And that's fine. If you don't go to church anymore, we understand it. We support you. And I loved hearing that. The woman that said that was actually on staff. She's not any longer because she said that. But love is the key. Confession number one, before we even get into it, because this is confessions of an ungodly cult leader, decided it'd be a lot more effective for me not to just point the fingers to all the leaders I know that committed a sin and share them. I'll go ahead and share about mine. Let me do the confessing. This is embarrassing. I'm more loving today than I was when I was in the church. That's a strange comment to make. I'm more loving today than I was as an evangelist in the church 30 years ago. I'm more patient. I'm less judgmental. I'm more inclusive. I'm less arrogant. And supposedly this change came from me leaving the only true church in the world and with the Holy Spirit departing from me as I did it. Huh? It's embarrassing confession when I find myself more like Christ, more Christ-like today than I was leading the group in London. Who's my audience? Boy, Matthew and I have talked a lot about this. Who is our audience? Well, I'm going to start out with and say ex-members. A lot of trauma, a lot of victims. A lot of victims of trauma in our group. It's time we get up front and acknowledge that and just say, these are facts. Remember that famous quote when they asked the guy, why do you rob banks? Was that Jesse James? I think it may have been. And he said, because that's where the money is. Okay, I want you to pause for a second and think, where's the trauma? The trauma's in churches. And it blows my mind that we've had trauma counselors all over move to the cities where the largest churches of Christ are to set up a practice. They even go. They even attend that local church. Some are elders, but they make money by counseling the people in the church that have trauma for the way they were treated in the church. Let that sink in just for a second. So why are you moving to where all the big churches are? That's where the trauma is. That's where the money is. We're going to talk about people who have left the movement. I'm also wanting to do this as my audience of people that are still in the movement. Why? I love them. I love them. Frustrated with them. Frustrated with blinders they don't seem to be eager to remove. But I love them. Part of my words will be for them. Also for leaders, past and present leaders. You know, I have trauma experts that I've talked with and get advice from this, and they go, James, you're messing up. If you start taking up for those leaders, even 1%, you're going to get trauma victims that are watching this going, well, forget James Lloyd. He's not even seeing things our way. He's not even acknowledge how much those people messed up our lives. I get it. I get it. But I'm going to tell you, I still love the leaders, past and present. And I do see things differently there. I'm going to be sharing some of their perspectives. And don't worry, I've got Matthew right here. When I'm not taking care and when I'm not mentioning people that have been hurt that weren't in the leadership position, and they are legion, I have no qualms that Matthew will speak up and say, aren't we forgetting a few people here? So together, we're going to make sure that these needs are covered as best possible. My collaborator, Matthew Wolpert, he said some nice things about me. By the way, we've not gone over any of this material together. I think that's good for you to know. Matthew has no clue what I'm going to be saying in the next 5 minutes or for each of these lessons, but we wanted it to be fresh. I'm going to be speaking for 20 minutes every time, and that's when Matthew will then give responses to what's been said, and we'll close it out at 30 minutes. We're giving you our word on that. We're going to try something different. We're at 10 minutes already. Let me tell you about Matthew. I love him. Forget I love him. I love you, Matthew, and I trust you. And I think you're the most loving man I've ever known. It's a pretty strong statement. You're also a very forgiving man. I've heard you apologize. I've seen you apologize more than every leader I ever knew in the church combined. That's a crazy statement. It's true. You forgive and you apologize. Matthew hates legalism. Hates it. Watch him. Watch his response to legalism. He abhors pharisaical hypocrisy. He speaks out against legalism and hypocrisy more than any man I know. He's Christ-like in that regard. And I started thinking, you know who really despises those who call the Pharisees out? The Pharisees. If you find yourself despising this man that's my partner, you better take a look at yourself. Because the people that hated most when Jesus called out the Pharisees was the Pharisees. Well, I need to mention another man who loved people and called out legalism, Henry Crete. He was let go after the Henry Crete letter. He was let go with a 1-month severance package and called the devil. I heard it from a lot of leaders. That was Satan's letter. And Matthew was part of Satan's plan by releasing it. That's the stuff I heard before I even met Matthew. But in my opinion, the two leaders our movement had that most reflected Christ, in my opinion, or John the Baptist, or an Old Testament prophet. These two, Matthew and Henry. And we made sure that we got them out of the way because of the dangers they presented to the church. That's just crazy to me. Remember that verse, have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? Henry Crete has every right to ask that question. Henry Crete is a remarkable man. You know, I did a Zoom meeting with Matthew, and it was interesting. There were Christians from USA and Great Britain. There were people that left the church years ago. There were some still in the church. It's a wonderful meeting. And I asked, who are the preachers that you most respect and why? And I remember a woman said, I'm going to talk about Henry Crete. Why? He led the church in Nigeria and I was there. Oh, yeah, I knew he was there, but why would you choose him? Because when he got to Lagos, he became a Nigerian. I mean, Paul said that's what he tried to do. To the Jew became a Jew, to the rich became all. Henry took that seriously. When he got to Lagos, he said, it's time to be a Nigerian now. And he started learning the language. He started learning the humor, the euphemisms. He started dressing as a Nigerian, interacting, and his wife as well. And this is what I was told, that he was so generous with the church that he would give them money in the church for things like they needed some food, there wasn't a charity to do that. Henry's going to do this out of his salary. and Maryland as well. And they started giving, this is what I heard, they were giving money to the ladies to get their hair done. And I thought, that sounds kind of vain. And my Nigerian friend explained, no, nothing to do with vanity. It's a part of our culture and dignity to have hair that's looking nice. And the Creeks realized that and were giving away their money, and they gave away so much that the church had to actually go to their door and say, you got to stop giving so much money to the church. You don't have enough even for yourselves. I don't recall that story happening all over the world where we went. That man that loved so much is the one we decided to boot out because he was challenging our churches. I'm offering an apology right now on behalf of the movement, ICOC. Henry, Maryland, we are so sorry. We are so sorry for the way we allowed our judgment to come on you in that way at a time where you really could have been and should have been lifted up. I'm glad the New Testament churches didn't have that kind of response every time someone wrote a letter about, here's something you could do to make your church better. I'm sorry, Henry. You didn't deserve the way it happened. And because the church may never apologize, I'm doing it on behalf of the church. I was a part of the church. I'm apologizing to you. Amazing. Oh, I just picked up I've only got 4 more minutes. So there from my perspectives.
So you cut out there for a second, James. You said I've only got 4 more minutes, and you cut out for a second. So.
It just said the internet was experiencing. I
Yeah.
just saw that a little. So these are my experiences, my perspectives. To give you a little factual background, I was baptized on October 8th, 1978. Me and Reese Nealon, same day. Moved to Boston in 1979. And this is important, 3 months before Kip's arrival. So let's get that straight. There was a little group of 4 would-be disciples before Kip even arrived, and I was one of them. So let's go ahead and acknowledge that. I'll tell you what happened before the church got started in Boston. I went to London for the first service in July 4th, 1982. By the way, side note, July 4th to start a church in London from USA. I'm not a big fan of all the talk on colonialism. I don't even understand it all, but I would say starting a church on July 4th may be a little suspect in that regard. It's humorous if nothing else. I left the church after 10 years in 1992. I left with 3 months severance pay and no pension. Pensions had not even started at that time. That will come into play later when I talk about how much money I got and the fact that I'm free to share about anything I want, anytime I want. I don't have a retirement fund that's coming my way that I could lose. I didn't sign any kind of form saying I will never say something. I'm free to be honest. Now, my style of communication is stories. It was the same when I was a preacher. The novelist Richard Powers says, the best arguments in the world won't change a single person's point of view. The only thing that can do that is a good story. I believe that. I do that. I did that when I was in the ministry. Jesus also knew that. He told the stories. So I'll tell the story, and that will end my part 1. Shut up or you'll get us both fired. There was a man looking for a job. We used to say it was a brother. Looking for a job, went by the zoo. Hiring today. Come in and ask. Yes, sir, I need a job. We need you to dress up like an ape, like a gorilla. We're going to dress you up. They'll never know. And all you've got to do is just play in your enclosure. But once an hour, we're going to have you swing over the fence where the lines are. Believe me, everybody loves this. The lines will get very agitated. They'll start roaring at you. You'll be safe. Don't worry about it. But then after a few times over that, enclosure. You can come back and stop. We'll do that for a number of hours. You get your money at the end of the day. And the guy started doing it, and it was fun, and it was real. He would swing over, and boy, they would start growling, and the crowd was yelling. One time he swung over the fence, and the rope broke, and he fell right in front of those two lines. And he said, help me, please. I'm not even a real gorilla. Help me. And all of a sudden he heard from one of the lines, shut up or you'll get us both fired. You know what's amazing about that joke? Number one joke told in the movement the entire time I was in the movement. That's 30 years ago. Number one told. Shut up or you'll get us both fired. Remember how people would get up and the preachers would tell one joke before they got into the first verse? This is it. The obligatory number one most told. Amazing. After being out of the church for 20 years, I was invited by Doug Arthur to attend a service in the Rose Bowl in L.A., and I went. I thought, I'll go. I took my daughter, Natasha. Kip got up to speak. I hadn't heard the man speak in 25 years, and he gets on and says, a man needed a job, and he was walking by a zoo one day, and I yelled out from row 44 in the end zone, shut up or you'll get us both fired. And Doug Arthur looked at me and said, why did you just do that? I said, I heard that joke 30 years ago. If you guys can't come up with a new joke, you deserve someone to yell out the punchlines. I'm sorry. But there's something about that story, that joke, the irony. No joke better sums up our mood.
James, you just cut out. You just cut out for a second.
Shut up, or you'll get us both fired. It's the reason.
It's okay.
Thanks for letting me know.
No, you carry on because it was just your face and the audio. But carry on. Just carry on.
No joke better sums up our movement. It's the reason that no leaders reveal what they know, even today. It's the reason that sexual sin is hidden and covered. Shut up. You'll get us both fired. It's the reason it's so difficult to make a documentary about this church, because all the people who were leading have a little code with each other that goes like this. Shut up. Oh, you'll get us both fired. It's the reason that leaders today, even ex-leaders, refuse to acknowledge mismanagement of people and abuse of members. It's the reason for the lawsuits. Shh, shut up. Don't bring it up. Confession. Here's a confession, not easy one to make, from the ungodly cult leader. I knew about Chuck Lucas, and we'll be talking about him in the next 2 episodes. I knew about Chuck Lucas and his sin while I was still in London, before I ever left the church, before I even left leadership. But I allowed pressure of others to keep quiet. And for that, I'm ashamed. I should have spoken up as soon as I knew about it. And I'll go into details about that later. That's it for my time today. Matthew, introductory, what have I missed? What would you like to add?
So first of all, how much time have we got?
7 minutes.
Okay, so I have the one thing that I take issue. First thing, I've got a few questions. First of all, thank you.
Yes.
That was very powerful, very moving, and very insightful. And I've got a billion questions. I've got a billion questions, and obviously we've got time, over the next however long we do this for, that I can ask stuff. But first, I just want to say about the love thing. That's the only I wanted to say. I heard what you said about I think it was natural when no one told me when a visitor came, make sure because we were like, we wanted to get them to heaven, get them into the church, have them have a relationship with Jesus or God or get baptized. So naturally we'd put our arms around them and invite them and show an interest in them. And we were taught to find out what interests them. What are their hobbies? We were
Right.
taught a lot of skills I mean, a lot of these skills I probably got from you and Doug and Kip about how to interact with people. Some of my social skills are directly from you guys, and they're not all bad. They're not all bad, but
Right.
obviously we were using them, we thought, to help people. I think I remember when I first got baptized. I remember all the warmth when I first yeah, he just got baptized, and hey, congratulations. I remember the next service, that was gone. It was gone. It was like, I remember looking around thinking, oh, okay. A bit like, yeah, now you're, and I kind of accepted at the time, but there was a drop off even then between studying the Bible, getting baptized, and now go out and get on with the work. And I think as time went on, the love, I totally agree about what you say about when people left, the love was withdrawn. Partly also there was a justification, like we can't support them in their sin. But I think even while we were in the church, there was a lot of lack. I mean, tons of lack of understanding of what love was. And I think it's summed up with I think Kip's thing of sentimentality. We can't be sentimental. I would just say, I would just change the word sentimental to love. We can't be sentimental people. Oh, you mean we can't love people? But we could get into that further. And then I'll just ask questions like, so you said you were one of the four who was in Boston. I'd love to know who the other three were. Like, because were you already, so if you got there before Kip, was the Lexington church, were you part of the Lexington church kind of before Kip
Yes.
transformed it?
Yes, I was. And it was actually closer to 4 months. And Doug Arthur and I went up together. So we were together the whole time, and we were both part of the Lexington Church. And I would say you got to throw the Gimples in right from the start. They were active. They were the ones looking to hire the minister. So the Rob and Pat both were part of that as well. Interestingly, for the months I was there, we didn't even have Bible talks going on in Lexington, but they did in Burlington, where Al Baird was an elder. And he invited me to spend the summer leading a Bible talk in his home for the teens of that church, including his daughters. And that is exactly what I did. And it made me really close to Al Baird by spending that time with him at that church prior to Kip even arriving. But yes, that was the beginnings.
And I mean, it's fascinating. So at some point, I don't know how far Burlington and Lexington are from each other and
Not far,
geographically.
20 miles maybe.
And so did they, that 30 was there a particular meeting? So this 30 would be disciples. Yeah, and some of this you might be covering later, or you can just say, we'll talk about it another time. But was that a particular meeting where it was like, okay, this is it, Kip's here, who wants to be with us? Was there like, or was that one meeting just a sort of an amalgamation of lots of different meetings that were going on at the time?
It was not one big special meeting, and it was not, okay, let's get the pictures. This will be called the Would-Be's.
Yeah, yeah.
That was never done. And by the way, also, just a little quirk. It just bothers me a little. It irks me a bit. I'm not in that picture because I'm not in the group now.
Right.
And that's been done 100 times. That's been done 100 times. I listened to the big New York church that just had their 40th anniversary. It's funny, the Johnsons never got mentioned. That they're not even mentioned. There's no pictures of them. They started it. They grew it to the height of that church. But now, just leave them out of the shot. And I think we did that way too often, and it's sad. Well,
I mean,
my friend,
well, hold on,
tell you,
are we up? How much time do we have?
30 seconds to close
Okay,
it
I just
out.
want to say, as a videographer for the church for quite a while, we used to have a problem with like, oh, this person's left. What can we do? We have to, and obviously there was lots of people leaving, so that was a problem. James, fantastic first session. I've enjoyed it.
I want to go an hour instead of 30 minutes. This is going to be tough.
You made a promise, James. What are you talking about?
I did. I want
Hold
to
on,
stick to my promise.
I'm stopping the recording.